Hello everybody, welcome back to the Innovation Series. In today's demo, I wanted to explore the idea of using polyfunctions within Google Sheets. And this is all going to be an exploration. So technically everything we've built, you can build yourself. I built it in our production environment, so it's all absolutely possible. It's just not really packaged and productized the way we would like to make it so that line of business users could take advantage of this in a self-service fashion. So let's treat this as an exploration. Don't go off buying poly for this, but do view it as an indicator of kind of the vision that we're pursuing. And the general flow is going to look like this. We're going to be using Google Sheets through AppScript to access poly APIs, API functions, or server functions. And we'll be using the poly APIs to access those functions directly. And the value here is that now users across your organization in Google Sheets or in Excel, the same approach could be taken with Office scripts, can access enterprise data, but they could be, the IT department or whoever manages and operates those systems can scope down the level of access to whatever they'd like. So you can almost build kind of single purpose functions whose purpose it is to offer up certain actions or data in enterprise systems to users in the line of business. And the innovation here really is that these functions, when they're either trained, if they're API functions, or when they're deployed, if they're server functions, they immediately become usable via an HTTPS endpoint. And so that same endpoint could then be used to make these functions both introspectable and consumable within different applications. So we're really just extending Google Sheets using AppScript to effectively be a client of Poly. And the vision here really is that we would be able to generate that client so that a user, maybe through an extension, maybe through some sort of administrative import, can basically take a selection of Poly functions and make them available to end users so that end users just see them natively as functions as if they're native Google Sheets or Excel functions. And that would be the kind of packaged experience that we're after, that we'd love to offer up at some distant point as part of our product. So with that, let's take a look at the demo, and then I'll show you kind of behind the scenes, how it was built, so you have a clearer picture. But we'll start off in Google Sheets, and I'll see you there. So here we are in Google Sheets. And today I'll just be using some Kroger APIs to search for store locations and then also to search for product availability within those store locations. Now, both of these functions that I'm going to use are being powered by my server functions, meaning that I've wrapped the Kroger APIs and created my own derivative microservices on top. My microservices handle things like getting a Kroger token. They manage things like converting the payload to a different format. So I've kind of interjected in between the Kroger APIs. These are just public Kroger APIs. Everyone is welcome to sign up and try them out. They're actually really well built and very nice. So the vision here is that I can just basically inside a cell type in equals, and I could start typing the name of my functions. And I would just do poly, and this would give me a list of functions that I have available within poly. Now Sheets does not support a dot notation, so I would have to do poly underscore, let's say Kroger. And then here you could see that I have different functions available to me. I've got a store search and a product search. And this would be a much bigger catalog, and the idea would be that users would have to kind of at least get to know the naming convention. Maybe there'd be a search capability. It's a little fuzzy in my head, but basically they behave just like native functions inside Sheets. And if I select store search, it's got the interface definition for me here. It wants a zip code and a proximity miles and a fields attribute. But what's also really nice about Sheets is you can expand this, and you as a developer, you actually can specify what types these fields are, and you can also give it a description, and you can also give descriptions on the attribute level, and you can specify whether they're optional or not. So this is actually really nice because Poly already has all this data. So we are able to basically just auto-generate this experience, which is really nice. We haven't done it yet. That's what this productization would be. But all the data that we would need to serve up this experience automatically is already there. So let's go ahead and use my home zip code here. We'll do 80516. And then we need a proximity miles. Let's do 15. And then I'm going to skip that last optional field, and I'm just going to go ahead and execute this function. And we can see we get back store information. Now my server function limits it to 3, so that's why we're only seeing 3 results. Again, you have full control over that with the server functions. That's for a different video, but the point being that it's behaving exactly as expected. And now if I want to search for specific product information within those stores, I can do poly underscore Kroger and then underscore product, and we can see that I've got product search here. Same idea, we want a product search term in English. I'll do organic milk, and then it wants a store ID. I'm just going to go ahead and reference the first location as that's the closest to my house. And then let's see what else it wants. It wants a product brand name. Again, optional. We can see that down here. I'm going to go ahead and skip it for the sake of the demo. And let's just go ahead and hit enter. And we can see it pulls up product information. We got the ID, in-store location, price, image, inventory. And this is actually live inventory, so this is really amazing tech that Kroger's implemented here. But as a whole, really powerful. And you can imagine how there's probably so many things inside your enterprise, catalogs or data or databases that you want users inside lines of business to have at their fingertips so that they can maybe sell or pull kind of largest orders, most recent orders, orders behind schedule. Like there's just so many things that operationally having a flexible tool like Google Sheets or Excel coupled with this data from your enterprise systems that's managed and restricted down using server functions by your development team can be just really powerful. So with that, I'd love to actually show you how it was built. If you're not interested in that, feel free to drop off here. But if you are, stick around and we'll start off with poly server functions, and then we'll work our way up to AppSheet, and we'll pick up there next. So I'm just going to show one function here in VS Code. It's basically a custom function I've written using native TypeScript in VS Code, and I'm using some poly functions inside it. But overall, basically, you define an interface, you specify your function signature, just like you would native TypeScript. I do some validations, and then I use a poly function to get the token for Kroger, and this is actually a custom function I've written to get me a token. And then I also use a API function to search for product locations using Kroger's APIs. And then down here, I go ahead and just transform the data into a structure that I prefer, and I return that data. So that's it. That's the extent of my custom function. And when I'm ready, I basically run a command like this to deploy to the Poly server. And that's where Poly is kind of an analog to AWS Lambda, where it's hosting and running these serverless functions for you. Makes them nice and compartmentalized so you can easily update one function without worrying about breaking other things, as long as your interfaces stay consistent. And then what we did, my friend and I, is we basically went ahead and in AppSheet built out the client for this. So I'll see you there next. So here we are in AppScript, and here we basically declared what our API is. You can see that it's using Poly's endpoint, so the function/server, and that's where the requests are being sent. But they're all going to be sent as posts. We have a generic execute API for all of our functions. And in here, you can also see that this is where you'd specify your token, etc. I withheld it for the purposes of this demo. And so the next part here is that we have kind of definitions on a per function basis. And so these are hand-coded, but this is what we would be programmatically generating for you. And then again, figuring out some kind of sharing or import or packaging mechanism, that part TBD. But you can see it's not very complicated. They're basically simple JavaScript expressions. There are some places where we kind of found a little bit of different logic per function, so we'll have to kind of figure out how that part is done. My goal here is to avoid custom development inside AppScript totally, if possible. But anyways, we've got the three functions. You could see their definitions, and we got another function we didn't use today to send an SMS. But yeah, so very, very kind of simple AppScript. And when you follow a certain convention here, like declaring a function, defining its parameters, this is what allows Sheets to natively kind of pick it up if it's been associated to that sheet. So that part is really well done, I think, by Google Workspace to tie it all together. So with that, hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. And if you have any feedback, questions, or interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out. Thanks so much.